Hey, everybody. It is Thursday, and we have a great show today with a little bit of a chaser for the week's news.
Tuesday was a little rough. Wednesday, we got a view of what's going on in the world. And here we are Thursday, sliding into the weekend, everybody. So it's Thursday, and Lon Harris is back for This Week in Streaming. We're going to talk a little bit about why Netflix might have gone wrong with their Walmartification of content. Talk about the Obi-Wan series and in-scene advertising. Plus, we pick the new show that we're all going to, including you, start streaming this week. And then we're going to recap next Thursday.
I mean, is Streaming Club the new book club? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is. So stay tuned for that because everybody better get on the jump. You have work to do between now and then. In the news, we're covering the mafia because the mafia used to do its business in secret, but now it's all on Twitter. There was a Twitter spat between Plaid CEO and a Stripe executive yesterday that we are going to break down with some dramatic readings.
And then we'll talk about Cameo laying off 25% of its staff. And then, maybe when dunking goes too far.
And then finally, we'll wrap with the news that Elon is going to be CEO of Twitter for a couple of months after the acquisition goes through.
And that he lined up some new funding for Twitter and rolled over some very big positions. It's going to be a great show, Molly.
It really is. Stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by iTrust Capital. Did you know that you can invest in crypto through your retirement account and still get the same tax advantages as a traditional IRA? Visit itrust.capital/twist to start investing today. Masterworks. Masterworks is the first company allowing investors exposure into the blue chip artwork asset class. Twist listeners can skip the 30,000 person waitlist by going to masterworks.io and using promo code TWIST. And Microacquire, the startup acquisition marketplace. Start the right acquisition conversations at your own pace. Get free and instant access to over 100,000 trusted buyers with total anonymity. Say goodbye to brokers and meet your ideal buyer today. Go to try.microacquire.com/twist.
Hey, everybody, it's Thursday. Welcome to This Week in Startups. With us again, as always, Lon Harris, the Lon's on Twitter. What's good, Lon?
Hey, good to be here.
What's poppin'?
Oh, the same old stuff, nothing new.
When I saw Lon, I was like, oh, it's Thursday. Yay!
Has to be Thursday.
Yeah, but
we got to talk
don't
streaming.
have any shows right now.
Becoming Pavlovian.
I have shows, but you
shows.
all are joining me on watching shows.
I have one
come
new
up with
show,
some new stuff.
which we can.
Okay, we'll talk about new shows. So we always talk about streaming since the streaming industry is huge. It's also got some injuries right now. Maybe overspending. So we're going to talk today about the business of streaming and then just some highlights that are coming.
Mm-hmm.
We no longer are having blockbusters day and date released, huh? That's over. That's gone forever, Lon. Just, it's not on our docket here.
Gone forever, I would say no. We're still seeing this happen. I mean, Marry Me on Peacock was a good recent example. That Jennifer Lopez romantic comedy with Owen Wilson. That opened day and date on Peacock and in theaters. And then NBC Universal just announced this week they're sending a few other films. They're going to skip theaters entirely and send them straight to Peacock. That includes John Woo's English language remake of The Killer, which is a hugely anticipated movie. Yeah, John Woo's directing his own remake of his classic Hong Kong Chow Yun-fat shoot 'em up The Killer. No word on casting or whatever, but that's going to go straight to Peacock. So, theater owners and exhibitors have been very big on this idea of, that was a pandemic thing. Now that we can go outside again and the air is no longer as poisonous, we're not doing that anymore. I don't know if the streamers are all necessarily on board. I think that we're still going to see some experimenting with these releases.
All I know is I got spoiled because my kids now think, we can see Doctor Strange, we can see Batman, we can see Morpheus. And I was like, it's only in theaters. And I don't know how long Batman took, but that looked like 2 months or 3 months in theaters.
6 weeks, 7 weeks, I think, is what they're waiting now.
For God's sake. I'm so irritated by
interesting, that's what we're seeing with Paramount Plus. They're doing that a lot with the Paramount movies, like Scream. They grabbed right from theaters and dumped it on Paramount Plus, and Jackass Forever went within a few weeks from theaters to Paramount Plus. And I mean, it's really interesting. It really does depend on the movie. Because what I was going to say with the Batman, that ended up doing better on HBO Max than a lot of the movies they didn't put in theaters and just put directly on HBO Max. And that was after a very successful international theatrical run. So it's starting to look like you don't need to skip theaters. And in fact, playing in theaters makes your movie more appealing to viewers once it arrives on streaming. I think we're probably going to see that again in the next few weeks with Uncharted, which was a big hit in theaters and is now going to come to streaming platforms. I think it builds interest when people know that it was a theatrical film. They feel more like, oh, I got to see this.
Scarcity breeds interest for sure. I mean, I was like, come on, The Batman, because I'm not sitting in the theater that long. So bring it.
I think the 3-hour thing helped too.
All the hype was there. But don't we think the windows have to be 8 weeks max? Like, I don't think that this 3 to 6 month window, I don't know. I just think the window needs to get shorter.
I mean, that's dead. The window that we all remember from the 90s and the aughts of where it would be several months of a theatrical window, because that was also, there were all sorts of deals that were dependent on that window. There was, when is it coming to VOD and digital? When is it coming to physical media? When is it coming to HBO versus cable versus all these other... Yeah.
Right. International used to drag 3 months or something.
Right. And so there was that big window for all of these different players to kind of get their individual windows. And now we're kind of pushing all that to the side. There's really only one window that matters. When do you show up on a service everybody has so they can watch it?
What's the ideal? I personally think it's 4 weeks.
I say
because
6.
I'm very impatient. You say 6?
I feel like 6 weeks worked pretty well. I mean, obviously, look, like the way movies work now, by week 3, week 4, the people who are really eager to see your movie in theaters have seen it. We're an opening weekend culture. Doctor Strange, people are going to pour into that starting today. It's happening right now. And so, I don't know if you need that full 6 weeks, but I mean, to me, I think that's what we're seeing is that it's a good buffer. It gives people enough time to see it who want to see it in theaters. It builds up that little bit of level of anticipation so that when it does hit Peacock or HBO Max or Paramount Plus, there's a lot of built up interest that maybe there isn't in something like Red Notice, which has big stars, had a big marketing campaign, but then kind of comes and goes and people sort of see it or don't.
Yeah. I was a little disappointed because I wanted to see Batman in theaters because I felt like the only way I could really experience it was to dedicate myself to going to a theater and experiencing it as a 3-hour piece of art and making that commitment. And sure enough, with kids at home, my kids, my 12-year-old, it wasn't for the 6-year-olds, obviously, a little too violent. I found out very quickly.
A little troubling, yeah.
A little bit brutal. And
7.
It was
but
basically, I got through the first hour and I'm like super upset now because I'm like, I want to experience this as one piece of art. And I feel like when I go to a movie theater, I saw Morbius and I actually really enjoyed it as a piece of art and an experience. And so I feel like 6 weeks gives me enough time because I don't want to go during the rush typically, but I am going to go see Doctor Strange at noon or 1 p.m. This is the other thing when you have kids that happens is you start doing the matinees because that's like a great
I love to go. My total top secret tip for movies is like the 9 or 10 a.m. movie. Breakfast in a movie. It's the best time to see a movie.
What do you do? Get a little Captain Crunch? You get a bowl of cereal and go?
All the way to the burbs. I have my coffee and my little bagel. And my brother and I like to, because, we just, I also think that 6 weeks is just pushing, but is okay for you're still in the conversation by the time you see it on streaming. Because I think that's a big part of it too. Like, I don't want the whole conversation to happen without me, but I don't like to go to the movies. I want to see it.
This is something I think we're seeing, that's so much part of what we're figuring out in terms of all these windows. Because that's the same with sort of the binge releases versus the weekly releases that they're all playing around with is, can you keep the conversation going for longer? What we see with HBO shows is that they build as the season goes on. Like the Gilded Age premiere isn't doing as well as the Gilded Age finale because after a few months of everybody talking about it, people start to come over and check it out. And that doesn't happen with Netflix shows because Emily in Paris season 2 arrives all at once and everybody watches it on their own time. So I think,
Netflix needs to change gears on that. Perhaps.
Well, they're starting. I mean, like The Circle is a great example. They've got that reality show, The Circle. And so that arrives over the course of 3 weeks in batches. So here are the first 4 episodes, wait a week. Here are the next 4. Because, reality show, you got to give people time to talk about who they like and who they hate and who's going to hook up with who and all that stuff. So
I feel like the binge watching makes it feel like it's a chore. Sorry to interrupt. So like Ozark, the second half of the final season dropped. And I'm like, I got to get to the end of this, kind of feeling. Yeah. And I, for the first time, really, I put it on 1.5. I was like, get me through this.
They were really good.
I was really enjoying it previously. And I feel like a horrible human. I'm apologize to the artist, Jason Bateman.
Laura Linney directed one of those final episodes.
And then I was like, at one point I was like, I really should enjoy this artistically. I put it at 1.25 or 1. And I was like, God, can you imagine you're a director or cinematographer and you built this art and Netflix is like, yeah, you put it at 1.5. I mean, it must crush their souls.
If you are listening to this podcast, I'm betting you already have some exposure to crypto. Certainly, we all talk about it enough. And it turns out you can now invest in crypto through your retirement account. That's right. With iTrust Capital, you can buy and sell digital assets from a crypto IRA. This means you'll actually get the same tax advantages as a traditional IRA. And iTrust Capital has over 24 of the most popular cryptocurrencies to invest in. Unlike the stock market, you can actually buy and sell 24 hours a day. That's part of the whole disruptive crypto thing. If that's what you want to do, just plan your retirement all night long. I mean, actually, that makes me want to plan my retirement all night long. iTrust is easy to use and only takes a few minutes to create an account. And setting up an IRA is free. And iTrust's fees are low, just 1% per crypto transaction. So visit itrust.capital/twist to start investing today. That's itrust.capital/twist. Taxes and conditions may apply, fees do apply, and cryptocurrencies are a speculative investment with a risk of loss. iTrust Capital Inc. does not provide legal investment or tax advice. Consult with a qualified legal investment or tax professional.
I mean, that's what's so much of the Netflix. I mean, there was that great article in, I think it was Hollywood Reporter last week about these there were 2 camps at Netflix. There's the old school Hollywood studio thinking of like, look, we've got to work closely with creators, shepherd these projects through development, make them into iconic shows. And that's how you got stuff like, Grace and Frankie, Orange is the New Black, Stranger Things. But then there was this other camp that was like, look, we can churn out. We got all this money. We've got a limited amount of time. We've got the whole world. We've got to take over and get interest from people. Yeah. Just crank out as much as you possibly can. There'll be something to appeal for everybody. And even if it's hate watching, it's just killing them with content. There's so much stuff. There's going to be something for everyone, and let our algorithms sort it out. And I think we're sort of seeing the end point of that now with a lot of shows that you want to go through at 1.5 speed.
Exactly. You don't care. Let's talk about this a little bit because that story did come out and we didn't get to it because we were so busy dissecting all of the pieces of Severance, which I think was time well spent. But this article is really interesting. By the way, I went back and I watched the last 4 episodes again because boyfriend. Yeah. And
dissecting.
Although I felt I was a little unfair, good one. I see where you're going there. To the finale. The 4th time that they did another round of bopping between them, I still was like, nope, it's too long. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So this article, the Hollywood Reporter article notes that Cindy Holland, who was Netflix's VP of content acquisition and original series, did seem to be one of the really loud voices pushing for quality, saying like, no, we should go more high end. We should go more HBO. They booted her. She was let go, and 2 other executives were given raises to take her place. Now, I'm not saying that's why. Like, there could have been some whole other thing happening.
Who knows?
But
this article was definitely written from like the Cindy Holland favoring perspective. Like her people were talking to the Hollywood Reporter more than the other camp. It's very favorable to her side. But that basically is what they make it sound like.
Look at that targeted advertising, by the way.
Oh, wow.
For those who are watching the video, Nick, it's producer Nick, just pulled up this page and there's a big old ad for Don Julio.
We target, we cookie.
This guy likes very high-end tequila, so.
It's amazing.
Oh boy.
That's amazing.
This could get dangerous. So
this piece was written, as you're saying, like with the perspective of Cindy Holland. However, so what it says is she was let go, and then this quote unquote Walmartization of Netflix started, where they just greenlit everything under the sun, like go, 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 go.
Yeah, it was the international head of content, Bella Bajaria, I believe is that executive's name, and she was kind of there was, if you read the article, a lot of things came down to the Lifetime series You, which was originally pitched to Netflix. Cindy Holland and her team passed. It ended up going to the Lifetime cable network, where it became a modest hit. Then Netflix licensed it from Lifetime, and it became a huge hit on Netflix. Still an ongoing show. They're making season 4 right now. And so Bella Bajaria is the one who brought it back to Netflix after it was a hit on Lifetime. And it became a little bit of a told you so. See, she doesn't know everything. Cindy Holland knocked that she had passed on it when it was still in a development sort of stage. Then, they talk about a few other projects as well. Cindy Holland was working on Queen's Gambit, which they all thought would be overpriced and bloated and no one would care. And then Insatiable, which was that very controversial show about a sort of a teenage girl who had been overweight. Then she loses all the weight and goes on sort of a revenge mission against all the classmates who used to torment her. It was a satirical teen series with this actress, Debbie Ryan, who was thin and wore a fat suit for the scenes in which she was heavy. Attracted a lot of controversy, and that was a Bella Bajaria project that Cindy Holland's team was knocking her for. So it became this kind of back and forth about who's the soul of Netflix, to put it in Crash terms.
Got it.
And then Sarandos ended up backing Bella Bajaria, letting go of Cindy Holland, and a lot, from the perspective of this article, a lot of people at Netflix feel like maybe that was the point at which things started taking this wrong turn.
Or all this content and doing a massive content push is what got them this massive number of subscribers and engagement. True. And what got them to, let's say, this, first Netflix waypoint, was responsible for some amount of growth, quality. Then the Walmart got them to another big footprint. Mm-hmm. And then that is not working now in the face of competition. So this is one of the things about strategies, like different strategies in hindsight, it turns out the same strategy might not work when the environment changes. So in an environment during a pandemic, not having a lot of content wouldn't work. And in coming out of a pandemic, when people have more choices to go on vacation or maybe see their friends or go to a bar, or, whatever it is, do a physical activity or something, God forbid, like maybe quantity isn't the move. Maybe it's back to quality now because people have less time and they can't keep up with all of this. So speaking of keeping up with all of this, what do you have in the hopper that you're most looking forward to? Because there's a lot dropping. I am losing my mind over the Obi-Wan 6-part series.
Yes.
Very
excited for a lot of stuff.
Because I'm a big fan of the Clone Wars, and I just watched a Clone Wars episode last night with my daughters, the Two Sons episode with Obi-Wan fighting Darth Maul. I won't give any spoilers.
It's been out for a while.
It was a Rebels. There was a story. There's a series called Rebels.
Right.
Which takes place, between episodes 3 and 4. Anyway,
correct.
My daughters wanted to watch it again. They were like, we want to see Obi-Wan again in that show. So I found the great episode where he fights Darth Maul again. So
you were right.
Are you losing your mind over this one or not? And
I'm definitely excited to check that out. Obviously,
suck? Are you scared that it's going to suck?
I'm excited, but I'm nervous.
I don't think it's going to suck. I'll tell you, Deborah Chow's doing it. She directed some of the better episodes of Mandalorian. I feel pretty confident about the creative team that's behind it. I think Ewan McGregor, great in that role. He's just in the right phase of life too. Like they got him at the right time to make this. But I'll tell you, my one caveat here is really, I just kind of don't love the idea of Obi-Wan being very active during this period. He's supposed to be hiding out. Even in the trailer that we got yesterday, there's that scene where he's saying to Owen, Lars, that, we got to train young Luke Skywalker in the Force. And it's like,
when the time comes,
Well, no, Obi-Wan wouldn't want to. That's letting Darth Vader know where you are. You can't connect to the Force. Vader will find you. So I don't know. Like, to me, that's a big hurdle they've got. Obviously, they're going to engage with it.
We'll
in
see
the
if
show.
they thread that needle. What about
some explanation for? Well, here's why this is happening, and here's why Luke still grows up and just thinks of him as old Ben the hermit living in a cave and doesn't know any of this stuff. But I don't know. To me, I like the idea of Obi-Wan just like living alone, meditating in a cave for 20 years, waiting for Luke to grow up. Like, I feel like there's
much more
that's
gravitas. Yes.
There's like a mythic sort of legendary kind of thing to that. And I think that when we micromanage it, go back and be like, yeah, but he was probably doing stuff. He kind of cheapen it in a way. But I'm very excited for the show. Yeah. I did not love the Boba Fett
Molly,
show.
you have some
but
thoughts?
I'd like
What's your feeling?
I don't have too. I mean, I think Star Wars has gotten more comfortable, somewhat controversially, with ripping up the canon. So I think this might be a step in that direction. And frankly, I'm fine with it. I'm here for more Star Wars content. I'm excited. I like the Ewan.
I like more
Star Wars.
Yeah, I like more Star Wars, but I do want it to be good though, because I don't want it to be the Netflixification of Star Wars, where it's just quantity over quality. And I do worry a little bit about that.
Here's the thing: you put Ewan McGregor in it. It can't be bad in my mind. I mean, they would, especially given how good The Mandalorian was. I thought Book of Boba Fett, people didn't like it. I kind of digged it in some ways, with the exception of the biker gang. So
the mods, they're called the mods.
I'm still so mad about that.
The mods were just,
the Gen Zs, the Gen Z token, the token Gen Zs.
But you know what? It was kind of like every series has to have their Ewoks. There has to be one mistake made.
Well, I will say a lot of people were very down on them having 60s Vespas in Star Wars, but that's a very George Lucas touch. He loves that 50s and 60s car culture.
It was a bit of an
it was very American graffiti.
Yes.
It felt like a little bit of a nod to classic George Lucas to me.
I'll give you that, but why were they so sparkly? I'll give you that, but come on. Those sparkles.
That's
also the reference. It was just they were too, less than zero, hipster, it was like a breakfast club is coming in to fight,
I wanted it to feel more like, if you're going to set the whole show in Mos Espa on Tatooine, it's got to feel more like a real place. I wanted to dig in more to the reality of life. There's that one scene where you meet the mods and they're like, there's no work here in Mos Espa. We don't have any way to make money. It's I want give me more of that. I don't need as much of references to the old movies.
Build out the world, build out the culture. And that's what I mean by tuck-ins. I felt like Rogue One did such a good job of explaining the existence of this different group of people during this tumultuous time. So it was there's a group of people and their only mission was to steal the Death Star plans. And here's what happened to them. Yeah, spoiler, they all died. It's it was just so well done. You know my saying, fortunes are made in the down market and they're collected in the up market. It's important to invest through cycles, not just when everything is going at all-time highs. And it's also important to diversify. This is all good, basic investment advice. And now you can invest in an asset that is historically uncorrelated with the stock market. I'm talking about blue chip art. I know what you're going to say. How am I supposed to buy one of these multi-million-dollar paintings if I'm not rich? Well, Masterworks is an investment platform that securitizes blue chip art and sells shares to any investor. You don't need to be a millionaire, or you don't have to bet it all. None of that nonsense. You can allocate capital as it best fits your budget and goals. When I wanted to add a Basquiat to my portfolio, did I go try and buy one at auction? Nope. I just bought some shares of a Basquiat on Masterworks. So if you want to join more than 360,000 active members, you can get priority access and skip the waitlist at masterworks.io/twist. That's masterworks.io/twist. And see important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.io/CD.
What's going to be one? Yeah.
The chat. I do want to shout out the chat, by the way, for a possible show for us, because they have been talking up Halo this whole time.
I'm watching Halo. So if you guys want to get on board, let's do it.
I mean, Halo was my game. I watched the first one.
How many are we in? We're 6 into Halo or something?
I think we're 6 weeks into Halo. Maybe
I'll
7.
I'll throw that one into the hat as an option.
Yeah, I would be down to talk about Halo. The other one I was going to say, if we do want to do sci-fi, today on Paramount Plus, Star Trek Strange New Worlds debuts. The new Star Trek series.
Winner.
And this one, it's set right before the classic Kirk Spock Star Trek. So
We have
young
to do
Kirk,
that.
young
That's a
Uhura
layup.
are in this one. Anson Mount, Christopher Pike.
Perfect.
I'm definitely going to check this one out.
Let's do
Yep.
it. Let's do it.
All right.
I mean,
Done and
that's,
done.
that's just a no-brainer.
I just wrote it down.
We're just closing on the Star Wars thing because I got a lot of feelings. The
Then we'll come back to business.
I think people, derided the prequels a lot, and it was only until they saw the sequels that they realized, like, hey, these aren't bad. But Hayden, what's his name?
Hayden Christensen.
Hayden
Right.
Christensen gets a lot of bunk about his performance. When you watch the Clone Wars, the animated series, and you see, like, they kind of took that character and let it breathe a lot more, and you kind of got this like playfulness, confidence, and then when he gets dark, you kind of understand why he fell out with the Jedi, and Ahsoka as his apprentice and his Padawan just fills in a lot. I think what they're going to do is they're going to take, if Obi-Wan succeeds, because Ewan McGregor needs some bang. I mean, he's at that age where he needs to, take down 25, 50 million. They need to take Obi-Wan and then immediately Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor and Ahsoka do a little bit of the de-aging or whatever they got to do on makeup and just do the full-on Clone Wars. And that would be tremendous because they're Cad Bane, who you saw in the original, who you saw in Boba Fett, is a character from Clone Wars. So they keep mining Clone Wars characters, Ahsoka. So the most interesting things in Mandalorian and Boba Fett, in my mind, were mined from the Clone Wars series. Which, if you haven't
definitely
seen,
the Disney Plus playbook. I mean, Dave Filoni, who created the Clone Wars series, one of the co-creators of Mandalorian and Boba Fett, he's really kind of, along with Favreau, sort of laying the blueprint for the Disney Plus Star Wars world. And this is exactly what they're doing. They know that this whole generation of, people your kids' age and a little older grew up with the prequels and these cartoons. And that this is, to them, this is core Star Wars. So you've got Rosario Dawson's doing the Ahsoka show. Hayden Christensen is in this Obi-Wan show, we know. So they're already bringing all these characters back. And that's what they're going to do.
Nothing going on.
Did he
I don't know if they're going to
I know, you showed that picture.
I don't know if they're going to recreate events from the Clone Wars series or they're just going to spin it out in a bunch of different directions. But what you're saying is what they're doing, basically.
Yeah.
Like, this is the game plan.
And when I talked to Jon Favreau about The Mandalorian, we had a conversation about it at an event, just socially. He said, he was like, well, have you seen the Clone Wars? I was like, yeah. He's like, I've seen all the Clone Wars like 3 or 4 times. He loves them and blah, 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 blah. And one of the reasons he wanted to do The Mandalorian, all this stuff, was because he was such a fan of what Dave Filoni had done. Dave Filoni is like, who's it? Kevin Feige?
Yeah, that they've often made that connection
like
of
the world builder and the coordinator.
Right.
Which, by the way, DC doesn't have, right? DC's got no Filoni, no Kevin Feige.
The difference is that the way it was always structured was you had the Warner Brothers film executive development team, and then you had the DC Comics film team. And so you always kind of had 2 teams instead of 1 team. Marvel Studios, it's like, this is the team, and it's Kevin Feige and his people, and they make the decisions, and everybody is sort of going through them.
But then you always have CW doing stuff.
And DC just has that big upsetting mess with Zack Snyder and then the whole Justice League
and that's
situation.
Exactly, if you look at it, it's Toby Emmerich and Kevin Fujihara and all these Warner Brothers executives who were fighting with the DC people over what these movies should be like and how it should work. So they're working, now that WB Discovery has kind of taken this over, they're making it sound like they're doing away with all of that structural business, and they're just going to have a pipeline that's more similar to Marvel Studios that just cranks out DC stuff.
They got to just coordinate what they're doing so they can explain it to people so they can buy in. So like when I see Green Arrow or The Flash TV show, I'm like, oh, should I watch it? Then I watch it. I'm like, what is this schlocky nonsense? This wasn't my expectation.
It's like what Molly was saying, that Greg Berlanti does all those CW. So they're kind of winding this down now. Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow were both canceled just this past week. Listen, a lot of people like those shows a lot. Legends of Tomorrow, which was just canceled, was on for like 7 seasons and has a lot of fans. I know people liked Batwoman. Superman and Lois, which is they're still making that one. That one has a lot of fans as well. I mean, people like them. They're a little cheesy. It's a little schlocky, but I think that's okay. And it doesn't all have to be grimdark 3-hour The Batman.
I would just like it to have feel like the same universe and some general.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, if you look at the big successes DC has had, they're not necessarily all like you had Wonder Woman and Aquaman from that interconnected world that both did really well. But then, what about Joker? Like that Joker movie wouldn't have made sense in a interconnected world, but it made over $1 billion and it won,
Joker
film festivals and Oscars. And
I like a wild card like that once in a while.
Or the Batman, Matt Reeves is not like, you're not going to get Robert Pattinson interacting with the Justice League or whatever. He's doing his own thing. So I think there's arguments to be made for both versions.
Did they do Logan?
No, that's Marvel.
That's Marvel, right?
Well, that was Fox.
That's like the Fox, like the crossover thing where they're
Fox
meeting in
and
the
Marvel
middle.
both owned X-Men, Fox was making X-Men movies with sort of like tacit participation from Marvel, and that's where Logan
that one was so good.
Well, and that's what Doctor Strange is going to have. Yeah.
My theory, they're saying that Doctor Strange. I haven't seen it, so this is not a spoiler. They're saying Doctor Strange has some unbelievable, groundbreaking, you won't believe it, cameos that introduce characters to the Marvel Universe. We know Patrick Stewart's in it. That's already been spoiled by the trailer. My guess is that Hugh Jackman is going to show.
I'm sure he is. They started that with the Scarlet Witch.
They've been teasing it. We know Professor X is showing up. I bet we get a moment
I love the X-Men.
They're so totally getting.
X-Men are my favorite. I love that X-Men series. Days of Future Past. What a masterpiece. I
have not very much actual art in my life, but I do have a long time ago. There was a comic artist who made dinosaur X-Men.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
4-frame Dino X-Men down in the downstairs, and sometimes like actual adults will come into my house and be like, "What is this?"
Is that?
Yeah, they're definitely coming back one way or the other. Yeah. We're getting new X-Men soon.
Before we let you go, quick business update on the business of streaming. Peacock is now introducing in-scene ads.
Yeah,
that I want to ask you about. As also Netflix and these other streamers have these conversations about an ad-supported model.
Jesus
in the
Christ.
Case of the Peacock thing, exactly. Like these ads will be dynamically inserted like a video game. So you can see we have a example
That's
up on
Jurassic
screen,
World Dominion being advertised. Yeah.
which, yes, please. I wonder to what extent is two things. One, is the ad industry so stoked because digital advertising turned out to be a little bit of a fraud because things like Facebook kept overstating the metrics. TV, everybody skips unless it's live sports. There hasn't really been ad-supported streaming on sites like Netflix and HBO. Like, is this actually a little bit of a revival for the advertising industry / going to ruin our viewing experience completely?
I mean, so far streaming has actually been pretty good for ads. These ad-supported free services are more popular than I think most people expected. Your Tubies, your sort of Roku channels, those kinds of platforms found a big audience. And I think that the ads are not as omnipresent as they are on like basic cable. If you're watching a Bravo show, you're being interrupted every 3 to 5 minutes for a few ad breaks. And on streaming, it's less oppressive. And so I think people mind it less. So, and then, obviously, if they could start even integrating it into the shows, that's going to work even better. I think it's sort of counterintuitive because at first you would think subscription services were all the rage. We all just assumed everybody will pay for Amazon Prime and Netflix and Hulu, and then that'll be it. And that's what they watch, and they have their subscriptions, and there's no ads. But I think we're seeing that more options people are willing to check out as long as they can keep costs down by having some ads. They're willing to do it.
Sometimes when an artist wants to have a Heineken, or a Diet Coke for a specific reason, or a Tesla, or an Austin Martin or something, and it's on brand, I kind of like this. James Bond comes to mind, right? Austin Martin pays for that inclusion, I'm sure, but it's on brand. It feels like that's what he would drive anyway.
Yeah, the big knock where there were a few movies where there were a few movies where Bond drove a BMW because they paid instead of Aston Martin, and not the diehards didn't love that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that felt a little.
But I do love that about the Mission Impossible movies.
What's that? They have a lot of.
Is that the one that they always have the cool BMWs? Is that the one I'm thinking about? Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of that. Yeah, right.
I mean, a funny joke too. A lot of Avengers movies, Tony Stark is driving a Saab because they're the ones that paid, and it's like I don't know if Tony Stark.
No, they had the Audi RX.
Audi, you're right. Audi, that's
back in the day. That was like the hottest car on the planet.
And remember, briefly they had Acura, and that was just like no.
Tony Stark will drive whoever's the highest bidder.
The Audi, I was 100%.
So this shows you like this can take the fact that we can talk about this can show how it can take you out of the narrative. It can really
work. Well, yeah,
it can really work when executed well, and it can also take you out of the narrative where you're like, he's driving an Acura, what?
Right.
Tony Stark I think
at this point, product placement so omnipresent in Hollywood films, I doubt we'll really note. I doubt this will be worse, so much worse that we will even notice. I just watched Uncharted, and there's a whole scene where Mark Wahlberg is not only in a Papa John's location, but verbally shouts it out like, hey, I'm inside a Papa John's right now. And it's like, that's the level of product placement we're getting.
That's where,
I mean, like, this is probably less bothersome than that, you know? I mean, we'll see how intrusive it is. I feel like it's stuff like the ad in the background of that shot. A lot of people probably won't even notice.
Yeah.
Microacquire is a startup acquisition marketplace that cuts out everyone in the middle. Basically, this means they help a startup get acquired super efficiently. Yes, if you're a founder looking to sell, Microacquire is free, it's private, and nobody is going to get into the middle of your deal and insert their motivations, which might not be in your best interest. To date, while they've helped hundreds of startups get acquired, I kid you not, and they've facilitated hundreds of millions of dollars in closed deal volume. Their platform includes over 120,000 buyers that pay $390 a year for a subscription, and thousands of startups currently are listed for sale at Microacquire. They've had hundreds of successful acquisitions so far. So founders can get free access instantly to over 120,000 trusted buyers, and you're going to stay totally anonymous. On the other side of the marketplace, again, buyers are paying that $390 a year, so you know they're serious. Microacquire will help you find a buyer for your startup. It's as simple as that. Buyers can browse listings for free, and the platform is totally free for sellers. Sign up for a premium subscription right now for just $390 a year to access all these great deals at try.microacquire.com/twist. Once again, acquire.com/twist. All right. So I think we have our show for next week. We'll go with
Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. New binge.
I bet they'll put 2 up for the debut week.
All right. So whatever numbers are out for Thursday, even if it comes out Wednesday drop, we all agree we'll be fully caught up by Wednesday night.
Yes.
Okay? And that means you too as the audience. Thanks, Lon. Everybody follow at Lon's. And is that the new betting back there, or did we not get that?
No, I haven't. I shopped around. I got all caught up in my bed shopping. I will figure something out and send some options to the team.
By next Thursday, I want to. When Lon comes on air,
this is on. Please don't blame the producers. This is all on me.
Well, I threw it back to Lon because I don't want to get him expensive bed sheets that he doesn't find comfortable.
This one's on me.
I want his review of them.
This one's on me. I will get on this by next week.
Just send him them, and then if he doesn't like them, we send them back. Lon gives a review, and then you're my gifting concierge producers here. My gifting concierge team for my producers. We're doing gifting now. I want to get a gift. You know, Mike Ovitz had the gifting suite at CIA, and they talked about that. It was like legendary. Speaking of gift bags, like we talked about earlier. So I got a little gifting suite going on here, a little gifting. Might be gifting some Warriors tickets this Saturday night, Molly. You keep your Saturday night open. I may have gotten gifted.
All right.
Pretty legit seats.
I just
no promises, but
basically everybody in my life just went to the curb. To the curb, friends.
might get gifted some. Could be good for branding. All right. Lon, great job. We'll see you soon. Stay safe.
See you soon. Happy watching. Happy streaming.
Happy streaming.
We need a little punchy catchphrase for Lon. Happy streaming.
Yeah. Happy streaming. Yeah. Stick with us. Happy streaming. Stream on. May the stream be with you.
Stream on.
Stream on.
I know. We really kind of missed our opportunity to have him on yesterday for the May the 4th.
We caught up with it. I think our Obi-Wan discussion did a lot of fan service there. I felt pretty good about that. All right. We got more news to cover
Let's
today.
do a little news.
Let's get into it. Do we want to talk about the Stripe mafia?
Yeah, we do.
Story? I mean, startups are so interesting. Like,
yes.
It used to be like we all knew about these like dramatic things happening here in Silicon Valley. And now I guess the, dare I say, Elonification of Twitter, where like every fight is just out there. Or maybe I contributed to this too a bit. For being totally candid, I take a little ownership. But I guess every fight has to be public. So like me fighting with Mark Andreesen and, me talking about it publicly, people are like, why would you ever do that publicly? Is that bad for business or whatever? I'm like, sorry. Gotta stop cursing. I'm like, what the heck do I care? Now, I got to give Breslow a shout out because he started this whole thing.
You got to admit he started.
Who knew fintech was so sharp elbowed? But here we go.
So somebody sent me, before we even get into this, somebody sent it to me, was like, have you seen this thread? And said, quote, my new vice is Twitter bro founder scandals. It's a genre now. It's a genre.
It is. It's its own. This is going to be if we think about the Theranos WeWork universe, we got to come up with a venture capital universe, the VCU. The VCU. Yeah, this is the VCU, the venture capital universe.
God damn it. Why is Lon gone already?
The VCU. We have to architect the VCU here because it's starting to emerge. This is going to be a great limited run series. Yeah,
VCU.co. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. It is the VCU universe. So here we go.
My God. Yeah, here we go.
In the VCU universe, Law and Order VCU.
Well done, Rachel. Damn, good punch up.
Rachel, good punch up.
This is incredible.
Here we go. The Stripe Mafia.
Stripe Mafia. Should we understand the players first? Set up the characters for us?
You set this up, Molly, as only Molly Wood can do.
All right. So we're going to get into the story because there has been yet another chapter of the Stripe Mafia Chronicles, the Stripe Mafia Chronicles. Let's talk about our characters. Zach Parrott is the CEO of Plaid. He with the beautiful surfer locks, which builds software. I don't know if you've ever seen Zach Parrott, but the dude has some like golden lock surfer hair.
It's okay, objectify him.
It's fascinating. It's just the hair is like
he's got good hair. I always comment on great hair.
Really good hair.
Great hair.
Plaid, of course, builds software that enables apps to connect with users' bank accounts. So, like if you buy a car on Carvana, Plaid is what enables the transaction and makes it secure.
Yes.
So it was like a big innovation. Jay Shah is a business lead at Stripe who appears to be leading something called Stripe's new financial connections platform. And the new business line for Stripe looks pretty similar to Plaid.
I mean, it is Plaid. I mean, financial connections is the description of what Plaid is.
It actually really is. It's basically like you took Plaid and you stripped away the cool name and the good hair and you just made
it a feature.
Made it a feature. So Jay tweets about the announcement of Financial Connections. Yay! We're launching Financial Connections today, enabling businesses and their customers to safely share their financial data. Businesses can go directly to Stripe to access a privacy-first authentication flow and our new data API.
The classic Twitter victory lap.
Victory lap.
What could go wrong?
Plaid CEO Zach Parrott responds, wow. I'm not making that up. Wow. Exclamation point. Jay, you took interviews with Plaid and asked probing questions multiple times over the past few years. And your team sent repeated RFPs under NDA to ask us for tons of detailed data. I wish you all the best with these products, but surprising to see the methods.
RFP being request for proposal and NDA, non-disclosure agreement, if you're new to the industry. So what he's saying here to translate is you guys pumped us for information under NDA, under false pretense, and then photocopied the product.
Yep.
Okay, so there's your story. Nothing else happened, I'm sure.
No, definitely not. No. Except that Jay responded and said,
here we go.
And said, Zach, sorry you feel this way.
Oh boy.
Which is always, woo. But this isn't true.
Your feelings. That is a little bit of a troll. I'm sorry you feel that way. It feels like couples therapy.
It really does. I'm sorry you feel that way is always just like, oh, you did not.
Oh, he did.
Sorry you feel this way, but this isn't true. And I think you know that. You reached out to me repeatedly. I never reached out to you for information. Stripe did an RFP because we work with partners for this product, and we had hoped to include Plaid.
Oh my God, so many levels. Hold on, I just need to get my paper towels here because so much tea has spilled. I'm going to need to
get my red flag too.
Here.
I'm getting my red flag everywhere. For sorry you feel this way.
So let me, Rachel's got the one-liners today. I don't know, man. Rachel's Adderall is kicking in here.
Dude, Rachel is hilarious. Everyone
hilarious.
Follow Rachel on Twitter because she is a machine.
She's got the Twitter thing on dial. Rachel, this is giving me toxic college boyfriend vibes.
It really is.
Really?
It really is. I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm so sorry that they banned everybody's instant Adderall online.
This isn't true, and I think you know that.
Ooh.
I mean, that is like, gaslighting.
Well, he's like, and we had hoped to include Plaid. It's like, you were thirsty.
You screwed it up.
You were sliding into our DMs.
Yes.
And I have the receipts. And child, not only were you sliding into our DMs,
we didn't want
we were going to include you in the party, but
but we didn't. So then our content king Ryan Breslow could not stay out of this.
The Ryan King slid in. He's blocked me. I can't even see this.
Oh, and then the Ryan King, of course, shows up on cue. The Ryan King signal was broadcast into the air, and he was like, "Oh, bummed that this happened to you, Zach.
Empathy.
Thank you
Empathy
for
on
speaking
100.
up." Stripe does this because they can. Most are too afraid to call it out, but the tide is turning.
Wow, look at this. He's literally like an empathetic Batman. They threw up the dancing Grateful Dead bear.
Startup Batman.
They put the bears, like the dancing bears from the Grateful Dead. If you're being harassed by Stripe, just put that signal of a dancing Grateful Dead bear.
And the Ryan King will be there.
King's going to be sliding into your DMs. Ryan, you can unblock me. It's okay, bro.
Come on. We love you, bro. We love you,
bro. Come on,
unironically love you.
He's Startup Batman now.
And then in comes everybody, right? In comes Antonio Garcia Martinez, who's like, I love how what used to be behind the scenes drama is now totally public and out in the open.
Yes, what I was just saying. Yes,
exactly. And he's like, this sort of thing used to happen all the time at every company you can name, but feature only in word of mouth lore. And now everyone spectates on the blow up, which makes me wonder if the Ryan King is right, that the tide is in fact turning.
Yeah, everything's public now. Everything's full contact, and I like it. I'm here for it. I like a full contact, no bull. Let's just keep it candidly out there.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I kind of agree. Like, why we all have the stuff that we say, and then we have the stuff that we say out loud, and then we have the stuff that we say about business, and business is all just people.
You know, it's like there's things that you can speak about, and sometimes you can't, right? So you have to use your judgment here of when it's time to speak up. So you basically got to pick your battles. You got to pick the hill you want to die on. You got to pick your fights wisely because enemies accumulate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find myself in the awkward position of like, listen, Andreessen Horowitz and I don't get along, but it's really Mark Andreessen and I don't get along, but he's a fan of the pod. We got a lot of besties in common. David Yulovich is a close friend of mine. He's come to All In Summit. He went to work there. So, it's all of a sudden these things become into gang wars when, I'm friendly with a lot of people at A16Z, in fact, and Superhuman I invested in, and then Andreessen Horowitz invested in. So, you can have like little funny battles. But this one is turning out to be
real.
It's getting a little more real now because I think what we're going to see is a group of people lining up on pro-Stripe side, people who own shares in the company. And then you have a group of people who feel like this company is behaving in a way, whether that's true or not, that is predatory. And I'm not making a judgment on that. I don't know that they're predatory. I don't know that they're not.
And they're playing hard. They're playing hard.
Well, and Zuckerberg, I have been very outspoken. He just steals everybody's ideas. I mean, I made a joke on CNBC, like, it's amazing what a great job Evan Spiegel is doing at Snapchat, especially since, he's CEO of that company while being product manager of Facebook, because they just steal all his ideas.
Yeah, exactly. I got you.
There. I didn't tell that. I dropped the joke better when I said it.
It was a slow burn. It was a slow burn on my part. That was my fault. No problem.
Fuego lento. Especially since he's doing two jobs. And so people do steal from each other. People do pump people for information. And is it actionable or illegal to copy a product? No. You could look at Twitter and make a literal photocopy of it. People have. People making open source products that are a copy of Facebook or whatever. Kind of how the world works, right? Yeah. And what you want to do is build an organization for founders who are listening that can constantly innovate. Because just copying somebody, you don't know why they made the decision. So sometimes you copy somebody, like let's say the features at Plaid. If they copied a bunch of features and they don't know why they made them, they may have made mistakes and copied things that Plaid's going to deprecate down the road, or that don't work, or that Plaid would not rebuild again. So you just have to be careful and be thoughtful and have a team that's actually understanding the customer base, not just copying, right?
Right. And to be fair, there's no reason in the absolute ever-loving universe that Stripe would not have a feature like this. At all. It's, like from a business perspective, it actually didn't even make sense that Stripe did not have a Plaid. Like it's going to be on the roadmap. I don't doubt that on some level they probably did pump Plaid for information, and probably under the guise of, maybe not even under the guise. They may have legitimately thought we should partner with Plaid or bring them on or even acquire them, and then decided, no, we can build them this ourselves. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Zach Parrott, come on the pod. Come on, man.
I DM Zach. He should totally come on the pod, because
I mean, for one thing, it is a transformative product.
Is good, and like get some exposure for Plaid out of this. He's almost come on a lot of times. My understanding is he's a fan of the pod. So, comms
it's
team,
easy.
Come on the pod. You know, we'll have a discussion. It's not going to be like gotcha journalism or anything like that. We'll just have a discussion about like what's the product, how are things going, and know, how do you feel about them as a competitor? That's it.
Yep.
But they did have that Visa acquisition, if you remember. They almost SPAC'd. I mean, Plaid's a great business, but they've had some choppy...
What was the deal? Visa almost bought them and then it was broken up? It was a DOJ thing? Is that what happened?
I think that might have been what happened. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. You know, my memory is usually rock solid for these things, and I actually don't remember in that case.
Turns out there's kind of a lot going on in the world these days. It's hard to keep it all straight.
They called it off due to regulatory.
Right. It really was that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that. Yeah. So I don't think they were blocked, but the scrutiny was so high that they felt like maybe the chances that they could get it through would be low, and it would take a long time.
Interesting.
The DOJ had some concerns.
Clearly made some noises. All right. Well, let's keep rolling. There's a lot of little news tidbits to get through.
You want to go to the Cameo layoffs? I think that's kind of interesting because I got into it with some people who were dunking on the founder. Cameo.
I remember, who was the VC you had on that was an investor in Cameo and had that great line about how it was too stupid to fail?
No, I don't remember.
It was hysterical. He's like,
was sometimes stuff from Kleiner Perkins, I think, did the latest round. I can't remember.
It was a pretty recent interview. That I was not on. It was like one of those like your old homie that, and he was like, and then there are sometimes there are ideas like Cameo that are too stupid to fail. And I was like, I'm writing that down. That's amazing. Anyway, Cameo, too stupid to fail, and maybe so smart that they, like all these other startups, are starting to make some cuts in response to changing conditions. Cameo laid off about 87 employees. That's 25%-ish of the company, including, though, and so that is significant. It also included, however, the CTO, the chief product officer, and the chief people officer.
Okay.
So is there more than just course correction happening here?
We've had this discussion. There is this term, never waste a crisis. I think it's a political term. I don't know where the origin of the term. Somebody can educate me. Producers at thisweekinstartups.com. When you have a crisis like this, you might be looking at your team and saying, hey, who's overpaid and not bringing it? And then who's their number 2 and number 3? And you might say, our chief product officer really should be the CEO. And the chief product officer is getting paid $300,000-$400,000. They got 2% of the company and they haven't been in the office. They're not coming up with great ideas. But hey, the number 2 and 3 people are kind of crushing it, and they're in Figma or InVision all day making these mock-ups, and they're coming up with all the ideas. And then you might be like, our CTO is out to lunch and overpaid, and our chief people officer is unnecessary. We're just going to have HR now. We're not hiring a ton. We're going to be at this size for a year or 2. So we don't need them either. So this shows me maturity. This shows me a high degree of maturity, which is, hey, we're going to make cuts. We're going to make them up and down. It's not going to be the people on the bottom. It's not going to be the people on top. It's going to be the people who are either redundant, unnecessary, or overpaid, or some combination of that. Now, this sounds really cutthroat.
Well, actually, I feel like we should course correct ourselves here, because I'm looking a little further down in our notes, and it turns out, and this, what you're saying may be true, and or also outgoing Chief People Officer Melanie Steinbach wrote on LinkedIn that all 4 of those execs wrote themselves onto the list in order to save more members of the team.
Seppuku.
Right.
Wow. So they literally
committed
I feel like ritual suicide to...
Apologies if we suggested otherwise, but it seems like, in fact,
that's
these
unprecedented.
I know, totally. I was like, wait, stop. This is not the story that we think it is at all. That's a huge deal.
That is very cool. Okay.
Yeah. The 4 executives who left, Rob Post, Emily Boschwitz, Nundu Janakaram, and me, all wrote themselves into the list in order to save more members of their teams. And in recognition, I'm like, going to tear up. That's amazing. Even if it's not true, it's a remarkable thing to write. In recognition of the readiness of the teams they had built to face the work ahead of this company.
All right. So again, playing cynics here. Usually when you do this, it's because you are going to do it for performance, etc. Now, they say they're doing it because they wanted to do what was best for the team. Third possibility. So if you ever seen the Kurosawa film Rashomon, there's like your version of the truth, my version of the truth.
And the truth is always somewhere in between. Yep.
What could have happened here is CEO says, board says, hey, we think your positions are not going to make it through this round of cuts. And they say, hey, I don't disagree. And I was thinking of moving on anyway. So it's kind of like that breakup discussion where it's like, is this working? And you're like, do you think it's working? It's like, I'm not so sure. And I'm not so sure either. Maybe we should take a break. I think we should take a break. I'm sorry. I can't even remember who suggested that we're breaking up, but we're breaking up, right? Kind of what might have happened here. And then the CEO, board, whoever is driving this, rightfully says, okay, for the protection of their reputations, if they want to, this was their idea, great. Again, I don't want to be cynical here. We can't know the truth.
Yeah, but it's true that if you only need, Nick points out that if you might need some execs for scaling that you don't need for just maintaining, keeping the plane level. You put it on autopilot.
A lot of times there's a lot of redundancy in these companies. And, it's we're going to be seeing a lot of this if we're actually going into a recession and late stage funding isn't available. We're going to see a lot of this with the companies that raised a series C, D, E, perhaps even Bs, who just, quite reasonably thought every round of funding has been up and for larger amounts. And people want to keep calling us to throw more money in. Every time we make an announcement, people say, hey, can I get in that round? Is it still open? And so if founders and boards see rounds closing with ease, they might very reasonably think, well, the A, B, C were so easy to close that the D is going to be even easier. It's gotten easier every time. Therefore, we don't need to keep more than 12 months in the bank because we should optimize. And we talked about this as well on the show. Yeah. So now what we're going to see is people saying, you know what? We may not get last round's valuation until we triple, quadruple, 5, 6, 7x our revenue. Okay, that's going to take 3 years. If we double every year, it's going to take a couple of years for us to get there. Therefore, maybe we got to get there on the money we have, or if we do raise, it's going to be a bridge based on the last round.
Yep.
You put all that together, there's going to be a lot of these. I suggest people refrain from dunking on these. It's quite painful for people. Now, it's easy to dunk on these in this situation.
We have dunked. We are guilty of dunking.
Sure. And
mostly on Dom.
But
Dom had employees who lost their jobs, and that part really is painful.
Right. And so here's the thing. There will be situations in which there's fraud. Theranos.
Yeah.
There'll be situations where there'll be mismanagement and just crazy, poor management, poor board decisions. I would probably put Fast into that. You put WeWork into that. Are those worthy of criticism? Absolutely. A place where maybe we can, maybe find a little bit of room for kindness in my experience, having been through this multiple times.
We always should, yes.
Is when people are kicked to the curb and losing their jobs. So somebody at TechCrunch, I don't know the person, but they do a crypto podcast over there, was like dunking on the CEO of the company. You can read what they said there. Maybe Molly.
He said, I'm sorry, but you got to at least temporarily change the Bored Ape avatar when you tweet out that your startup is making layoffs.
Okay. I get it. Steve Galanis, who was on the program, who's the CEO, Mr. 312. Not only does he have a Bored Ape, he's got the NFT uploaded to Twitter, which makes it like what is that? What's a six-sided called? It's not an octagon's 8, rectangle's 4. What the hell is a six-sided object called? Sorry, it's been a while.
I'm like a sexagon.
You're old. You don't remember anything from.
I don't think it's called a sexagon, but I do now want to start a band called Sexagon.
It's pretty sexy, that gon. Sexagon is pretty cool. That's
awesome. Hexagon. Thanks, Miguel.
Thank you. Hexagon.
I don't care. I call it a sexagon now forever.
Oh, that's a sexy gun.
Yeah. Everybody, if there are layoffs and there are layoffs at a company who's too stupid to fail, right? So not an obvious need in the world like Cameo. And it appears that the CEO is spending stupid money on Bored Ape sexagons. Unfortunately, these reactions are to be expected in the hellscape that is Twitter.
Yeah, but
also have some freaking empathy.
Have a little empathy. So I said people are losing their jobs. No need to dunk here. To which this journalist, and this is where I think this is why the New York Times is asking journalists maybe spend a little less time on Twitter, and maybe put it more into stories, or in his case, I guess his podcaster. And he got back to me and was like, "Listen, I'm not going to get into this debate or whatever, blah blah blah." But I do think for journalists, the dunking, and then somebody called me out on my saying Twitter could be done with half the number of people. So I thought this was actually a particularly productive dialogue. So he said, pretending, this is Lucas Matney, blue check mark. He's a journalist at TechCrunch. Pretending like the hurt of downsizing is evenly spread between founders and the people who are getting canned isn't a game I'm interested in playing. I don't understand the response exactly, but I said, listen, everyone will be fine. Ultimately, these are tech workers in the modern world with 11 million plus job openings waiting for them. I.e., there's 11.5 million jobs in the United States. Hardest ones to fill the tech ones. So folks will probably get months of paid recreation and a raise, at least in my experience, which is the absolute truth. So here we are in the West with tech workers. Man, do they get treated overall amazingly when compared to a factory in China that gets shut down and you don't get paid for the last 2 weeks you worked. That's kind of how it works, and there's no safety net. So yeah, your tweet struck me as a bit mean-spirited. So and somebody rightfully called me out, hey, about Twitter, I was saying hey, listen, Twitter could be done with 2,000 employees instead of 8. And so, I think making commentary about how many employees it takes to run a company and doing that strategic analysis is different than in the moment people are losing their jobs. So in the moment, if there was, layoffs at Twitter or whatever, yeah, I'm not going to go out there and dunk on them and be like, haha, as they're leaving the building. And, it's a horrible feeling when you lose your job and you're laid off because it has nothing to do with you, but you maybe really believed in the company. I've done 4 layoffs of note in my life, .com era and 2008.
Right.
It's distinctly different analyzing a business and should they do this or not? Because Twitter did go sideways for a decade. And the people on the inside have all told me universally, the reason we're not making this work is because we're so bloated.
Right.
That's the word from the inside of the company long before Elon showed up, long before Jack got a second tenure. I'm talking about in the Dick Costolo era, people were questioning the number of people working there.
Yeah. What I would say,
what do you think?
while refraining from dunking on, while people are getting laid off, is that an up market will encourage a lack of discipline. And so it is a little frustrating because because this pain is not felt evenly, right? That's Lucas's point. The CEOs who are doing the laying off are not necessarily, they're going to feel pain. And that's the part he misses. It is very painful as a leader to have to lay people off. That is a failure, right? You feel the failure of that. However, that pain is not necessarily felt equally. And these companies maybe weren't as disciplined as they could have been in their own hiring. They got drunk on an up market and got too bloated, and now the employees pay for that. And so I think there's it's a little bit fair to say yes, I understand, CEO, that you're feeling pain as a result of laying these people off, but did you have to be so big in the front? Did you like go crazy? Did you Don Julio them or not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that would be a great thing to do in an investigative story, not just a one-off tweet. So as a journalist, you're damaging the brand you're working for by just dunking on people when you could just do a story, like actually dig into it. Like, is there malfeasance here? Is the company mismanaged? Like, okay, sure, that's a fine story. Do an analysis of it.
Right.
But just dunking because he happens to have a Bored Ape. What if he bought the Bored Ape for $10K and it's now worth $300K or whatever these things are worth? Like, okay, he made a savvy purchase of a piece of art. Like, this is like when they show somebody's home.
It was like a little funny, though. It was like a little funny.
Well, that's why I called it a dunk. I get why it releases dopamine.
Good point.
It's a dopamine
Literal
release.
dunk.
And it's a literal dunk. It's like when you dunk on somebody and then you flex when they're on the ground. There's no need to flex and walk over the person, and nutmeg them because they... Yeah. It's not exactly the term of nutmeg, but...
I mean, I was just going to say to Draymond Green them, but you went for the more descriptive version of that.
Well, that would be when you get hit in the nuts, but a nutmeg is a nutmeg is in basketball when the ball goes between your legs for an assist. Chris Paul, being the master of the nutmeg.
Gotcha.
But anyway, you don't have to just actually, who was it who walked over the person? I think it was Allen Iverson who did the step over. There's a famous clip of Allen Iverson stepping over somebody after he, Ty Lue, after who's now a coach. He basically, I believe he ankle breaks them and then does like a dramatic step over. It's just disrespectful. So just a little coaching here for, Cub journalists. I don't know if this person's a Cub journalist, but this is why there's a little animosity between tech press and tech, leadership. Is because you don't need to dunk at this time. Like,
I don't know if this is why. I will say most outlets are not allowing this level of dunking. I think it's more the heightened scrutiny, I would argue.
It's both things.
Yes, it might be both things. I will say we are gearing up for a time of much dunking and much commentary on tech CEOs, one in particular, because there's also reporting today from CNBC, breaking news as of this morning, that says that Elon Musk is planning to serve as temporary Twitter CEO following the takeover, meaning that he will likely be the one to execute any of these layoffs should they occur.
There you go.
And taking all the fire for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So Parag Agrawal, we should note just as by way of background, is the current CEO of Twitter. He has only held that position for 6 months. So this is also sort of subtly an announcement that he is out in some way. We don't know what way. But we do know
you never know. Maybe he sticks around for a year and, because was he previously the CTO or the VP of engineering? I can't remember.
I think he was
I think it was CTO, yeah. So he can stick around for 6 months or be a consultant. Who knows? I have no inside information.
Yeah.
But great. I think that is, if you're going to buy something this big and put this much of your net worth and reputation on the line, he should be CEO. He's got to uncover what's going on there. And there's a group of people who will be very inspired to work there as him CEO. There might be, conversely, a group of people who don't want to work for him, which will set a culture. And a culture needs to be set there because the culture has, according to all the CEOs, according to Jack and everybody, the culture has meandered, right? There hasn't been a wartime CEO there ever. As one person described it to me, like a series of CEOs who, maybe couldn't make decisive decisions, or maybe there wasn't as decisive a decision-making structure. And Jack sort of hinted at that, didn't he? That the board was always like pushing them in one direction when the product vision needed to go a different direction. And so there does need to be a strong hand at the wheel. There's going to need to be a culture that is established, reestablished, rebooted, whatever. And, that's what Elon will bring to the table.
Matt Levine, I don't know if you read him, but he had that
great email newsletter guy. Yeah.
Amazing newsletter. And he had a remarkable one the other day where he was sort of taking apart Parag's statement about Twitter employees about why, they voted for this purchase. And the response was basically like, well, it was good for the shareholders. And he just had like paragraph after paragraph that essentially is, resulted in the same outcome, which is like, it seems like everybody who works at Twitter doesn't give a about Twitter. All of the executives at Twitter can't be bothered to say this is a really, impactful product. It's really important to the world. Like they just, one
interesting
assumes,
insight. Yeah.
And just says, Twitter's board gave up. It was really remarkable. And he sort of said, like, Tesla, Amazon, like, these are not companies who have CEOs that are just like, our fiduciary duty is to maximize the shareholder returns at all.
Yes.
And as a result, those companies are returning wild returns to their investors, unlike Twitter, which has had a series of leadership that barely uses the product.
I mean, I made that point many times, and I think that is why he will be a great CEO. He understands, loves, and uses the product, has, absolutely built the most important car company in the history of cars, perhaps, since Ford, I guess, or Mercedes. I'm not sure who is the most important car company in history or how you would judge that, but certainly he's one of the most important, if not the most important car company in the world. And he's done it with no advertising budget. And we would, I think, all agree that his ability to engage socially on Twitter has been a big part of landing employees, customers, and building those brands. And his personal branding and the fact that he does customer support on Twitter all day long. And obviously we're friends. And, I think you don't have to say it, but I will say he has also occasionally lost customers on Twitter. Yeah, maybe, take the good with the bad. So it is what it is. If you don't like his style, and you buy your car based on that. And then it's probably people, AOC at least drove a Tesla for some period of time and she don't like them.
I drove a Tesla for some period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, his style, as he said on Saturday Night Live, like, well, yeah, I'm a little strange.
Right.
If you haven't been paying attention,
you do take the good with the bad. And we have to at least point that out, that there is a universe in which when you drive a Tesla, feel that you have to apologize or Cinderella for some of those things on Twitter. Like they're inextricably linked, is what I'm trying to say.
I think you can drive the car.
Linked from the car.
I think you can still drive the car and enjoy it and not worry about it.
You'd be amazed. Come to Oakland, my friend.
I know some people it is.
Come to Oakland.
With their, for some people it is a thing.
Very quickly, because I have another interview right after this, but let's talk about the money real quick behind Twitter.
Oh, yes.
So and this purchase, because there have been some rumblings that not all of the money has been secured and what's going to come next. And then there is an SEC filing revealing where some of the money has currently come from. It revealed that Musk has raised $7 billion in capital for this takeover from 18 investors, who include Larry Ellison, who committed $1 billion, Sequoia Capital, Vi Capital, Binance, A16, and the Prince. The largest investor in the disclosure was Saudi Prince Al Walid, pledging to roll over $1.7 billion in shares. So I guess he was not mad about the tweet. So just to clarify, the Saudi Prince is the only rollover. Al Walid apparently saying he would roll over his existing shares to contribute to this purchase. All the others are new capital.
And I think there could be more to come, is my guess. So who knows what date was this filed? And I wonder what date this was, what date this was locked. Because now that this list is out here, it's quite possible that somebody who owns a certain amount of shares might want to roll over, or new investors, other sovereign wealth funds might look at this. I think Elon can 10x the company. That's, and I think that's probably what the investors believe. A 2, 3x, I think, will be a layup for Elon. I think a 10x will be quite possible. There's no reason it can't be a $400 or $500 billion company. There's that potential there. And certainly it's going to throw off massive profits at some point if they can change the cost structure a bit. 8,000 employees, whatever thousands of freelancers, contributors, contractors could, I don't know. I've heard it could be done with half or less, just like Google could be done with probably 80% or less. I'm talking about public statements by over the years. That's what analysts who wanted Twitter to be profitable were speculating. If you have half the number of people, this thing would be a money printing machine. It would look totally different. And you need to have momentum in a business. As we're seeing with Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb, we talked about yesterday, Molly, they really took layoffs, cost cutting, getting rid of spending on driver perks, all this stuff, right? Molly, they took out of the business to have discipline, to show that it could reach profitability, and that free cash flow will arrive. What does that do? It builds confidence in the business. and the whole dialogue on CNBC today, I'll listen to it in between we're taping our podcast or whatever. And people were picking Uber and Airbnb as their stocks of the day or their picks because they were saying, listen, management.
Because they heard our show.
They heard our show. But they were also just looking at the numbers and saying, hey, Matt, this is great management. Look at all the signal from management that they get it. The signal.
Yeah. The intentionality.
Intentionality. A plan being executed by a group of people that's in the best interest of the customers, the shareholders, and the employees. And so back to that, is it Matt Levine's comment? He's right in that, like, they're not talking about the product, its place in the world, and the customers. They're talking just about the shareholders. You actually have to keep three things in mind running these businesses.
Yes.
I got my employees here who have to build a product that hits customers. Okay, those two things you have to get right. And we've talked about this in early stage investing, right? I always talk about, like, who's the team? What's the product? What do the customers think about the product? Let's talk about that first. And then we can talk about everything else. And the founders who talk about their team, their customer, and their product, 90% of the time seem to be, for me, the ones that win. And then you'll meet some founders who are talking about everything but their team, customers, and products. They're talking about the market, the competitors, how bad this competing product is. Some
who's the
startup
mafia
award. Who's the mafia?
Who they're mad at. Yeah.
Who they're mad at. All the stuff that is not the customer, that is not the product. And, finally, shareholders. Yes, you have to have all three of these people, investors, customers, employees, the team. All of that has to remain in your brain at the same time. You have to be having all of those things dialed in, and you have to continue to improve those things, which is, you're seeing me at work here, running this company. What do you see me focused on?
Yeah.
Who's our customer? Yeah. Well, but really, what are we focused on? Who's the customer?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. The customer is the founders listening to the show and the founders we invest in. Okay. And who's on the team? Well, we added Molly Wood this year. We added Mike Savino, and we added this person, Justin, Rachel. Okay. And we're mentoring those people, right? Professional development. We're trying to make them better at their jobs. Okay. Check. Check the product. I'm sorry. Check the customer. Check the product. Check the team. And now we look at the product. Okay. VC Sunday School. Rachel reporting. Okay. Boomer. Lon streaming. Meetups. We're thinking about this product this week in startups. The Noties, doing it live. We're really thinking about what's the product.
We're never done. We're never done.
Well,
like, it seemed like Twitter got to a point where they were done. They were just it's like Craigslist, right? Like, Craigslist has looked the same
eBay.
Since we were babies on the internet. eBay, same. Never be done. And Amazon, exactly. Amazon has also looked the same for like way too long now.
Yeah, but you know what? You look at that Amazon Basics list. I don't know if that was Monday we talked about that or last week. And you go down that Amazon Basics, it's like, they're like, here's every style of wrench. And I'm like, does Amazon need to make a wrench? I don't think so. Well, and also
Amazon was like, we might be done sort of, but we're stealing all these products and then we're building AWS. Yeah. So they weren't done either.
And maybe you look at Lyft, right? And their problems, like, what's the latest feature or product from Lyft?
Right.
I can't name it.
Right.
Talk to me about Uber. I can tell you, like, they're doing grocery and convenience stores, and they have Uber One, and they're doing Uber experiences and restaurants and making it a super app. So I can literally tell you the roadmap because the CEO is talking about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to
same
Twitter.
with Airbnb. He's like, we're moving in this direction. We're going to handle it this way.
Dropping,
We've got a new thing dropping. Like, this may feel like exhausting advice to you founders and humans in the world, but what you are now is not how you should stay. It is, you get no credit for it, and it's not how you can remain. You have to keep moving or you will be disrupted and killed.
It's just such a great observation and point you're making, because I am always telling people, please, no credit for what's in the rearview mirror. Please look through the windshield. Now, I'm not saying that Craigslist is not a money-making machine. It has been. The thing is printed money. But if you look at marketplaces, like the Facebook marketplace doing pretty darn good.
Nextdoor, like, I don't use Craigslist. I use Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace.
And I think if you were to look at Craigslist metrics, it peaked like 4 years ago. If this is right, this is AIM Group Marketplace's report.
Revenue, let's see, bounced back in 2021 due to the hot job market, but is still down more than a third from its pre-pandemic total of $1 billion annually.
Okay, so who knows if that's pandemic related. I would be very interested in seeing where Facebook Marketplace and Nextdoor were introduced here and the impact those two have had, because those two are basically straight up trying to compete there.
Yep.
All right.
Anyway,
I think we did enough show today.
A super cool interview, so we have to go now.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the pod next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.